Right now, as you watch this, a Las Vegas casino is hemorrhaging money, not losing, hemorrhaging. $500,000 every single day, gone. By the time you finish your morning coffee tomorrow, another 20 grand will have evaporated into the desert air. By the time you finish this video, they'll have burned through another 35,000. And the executives running this disaster, they're praying you never do the math. I want you to picture something. Imagine walking into a casino, you head straight to a blackjack table, you sit down, and then you light $500,000 on fire. The pit boss doesn't stop you, security doesn't intervene, they just watch it burn. Now imagine doing that again tomorrow, and the next day, and the day after that. That's not a gambling problem, that's not bad luck, that's a business model. This is not a clickbait headline, this is the balance sheet. And in the next 10 minutes, I'm going to show you exactly how a $3.7 billion resort became the most expensive bonfire in Las Vegas history. I'm going to walk you through the debt structure they tried to bury, the occupancy numbers that contradict every press release, and the fatal design flaw that means the harder they try to fix this, the faster they sink. If you're new here, I break down what's really happening behind the neon. No press releases, no casino PR spin, just the numbers and the truth. Hit subscribe, because once you see how this industry actually works, you can't unsee it. But here's what makes this story truly disturbing. The people who built this tower, the executives who greenlit the financing, the consultants who ran the projections, they knew. They knew it was doomed before they ever cut the ribbon. When this resort finally opened, the headlines were glowing. A new era for Las Vegas, the future of luxury gaming, a $1 billion bet on the Strip. The renderings looked like something out of a dream. Gleaming towers, infinity pools catching the desert sunset, restaurants with celebrity chefs and 12-week waiting lists. They sold you a vision. What they didn't tell you was the truth underneath. The financing behind those gleaming walls? It was a house of cards built on quicksand. Construction loans stacked on mezzanine debt, stacked on high-yield bonds with interest rates that would make your credit card company blush. When they broke ground, rates were low, money was cheap, and on paper, on a very optimistic spreadsheet in a very air-conditioned boardroom, the math almost worked. Then the Federal Reserve raised rates, and every single percentage point became a knife twisting in the wound. $500,000 a day. Let that number sit in your chest. But here's what they don't want you to understand. That number, that's just the wound you can see, the blood on the carpet. The real bleeding is happening somewhere else. Somewhere buried in the fine print of a loan agreement so predatory it would make a loan shark wince. The debt holders aren't worried. They're not panicking. They're circling. And what they're planning for this building is far worse than bankruptcy. So let's follow the money. Not the slot revenue, not the table games. I'm talking about the debt, the real engine driving this disaster. Because when you understand how this building was financed, you'll understand why $500,000 a day isn't even the worst part. The worst part is that the bleeding was baked into the blueprint. Here's how casino mega projects get built in the modern era. You don't just walk into a bank and ask for $3 billion. That's not how it works. Instead, you stack debt like a wedding cake made of dynamite. Layer 1, construction loans. Relatively cheap, but they come due fast. Layer 2, mezzanine debt. Higher interest, less flexibility. The lender gets a piece of your soul if you miss a payment. Layer 3, high-yield bonds. Wall Street's favorite euphemism for junk debt. Interest rates that start around 8% and climb from there. Stack them all together and you've got a capital structure that only works if everything goes perfectly. And for a brief moment, it almost looked survivable. When they broke ground, the Federal Reserve had rates pinned near zero. Money was essentially free. Every developer in America was gorging on cheap debt like it would never end. Then 2022 happened, then 2023, then 2024. The Fed raised rates 11 times, and every single increase was a tourniquet tightening around this building's cash flow. But here's where it gets truly ugly. To service this debt just to make the monthly payments and keep the lights on, this casino needs to fill roughly 85% of its rooms every single night at premium rates. You want to know their actual occupancy numbers? I pulled the data. It's not even close. Industry analysts estimate their real occupancy is hovering somewhere between 55 and 62%. Let me put that in perspective. The Strip average is running around 88%. properties like the Bellagio and Wynn are pushing into the low 90s. This resort is running 25 points below the competition. That's not a soft quarter. That's not seasonal fluctuation. That is a structural collapse in demand. And every empty room isn't just zero revenue, it's negative revenue, because the debt payment is still due, the electricity still runs, the staff still needs to be paid. An empty room doesn't cost nothing. An empty room costs money. So let's break down that $500,000 a day. Debt service. That's roughly $200,000 daily just to feed the lenders. Payroll, another $150,000. Dealers, housekeeping, security, management. They don't work for free. Utilities, in the desert. Keeping a glass tower cold in July, $50,000 a day minimum. Marketing, maintenance, insurance, licensing fees. It adds up fast. And it adds up whether the casino floor is packed or a ghost town. $500,000 out every single day. And here's the thing about casino losses. They've survived downturns before. They've survived recessions. They've survived scandals and disasters and global pandemics. What they cannot survive is what I'm about to show you next. A fundamental design flaw. A crack in the foundation that means the harder they try to save this building, the faster it crumbles. Because they didn't just build the wrong casino. They built a casino for a customer who doesn't exist. Losing money is one thing. Casinos can survive losses. They've done it before. You tighten the belt, you cut the buffet, you lay off a few dozen dealers and wait for the tourists to come back. But there's one thing no amount of cost cutting can fix. Building a product for a customer who was never going to show up. When the architects drew up these blueprints, they had a very specific guest in mind. The ultra-high net worth whale, the private jet crowd, the kind of gambler who drops $200,000 on a single hand of baccarat and asks for a bigger line of credit before dessert. Every design choice reflected this fantasy. The marble, the private elevators, the suites with price tags that look like mortgage payments, the restaurants where a steak costs more than most people's car payments. They built a palace for billionaires. There was just one problem. Billionaires already have a casino. The whales who move markets in Vegas, they've been going to the same properties for decades. The Wynn, the Bellagio, the Venetian, these relationships aren't transactional, they're personal. Their hosts know their kids' names, their divorce attorneys, their favorite bourbon, what time they like to wake up, and what dealer they want at their private table. You don't steal a whale with a shiny new building, you steal them with 20 years of trust. And trust? You can't finance that, you can't construct it, you can't will it into existence with a groundbreaking ceremony. This resort showed up to a knife fight with a brochure. So when the whales didn't come, management panicked. They looked at those empty suites, they looked at that hemorrhaging balance sheet, and they made a decision. A desperate, sweaty boardroom decision. They pivoted. They decided to chase the mid-market tourist instead. And that decision, that single, panicked pivot is what sealed their fate. Here's a truth they don't teach in business school. When you discount a luxury product, you don't gain customers. You destroy your brand. The moment they started slashing room rates to fill those empty towers, they sent a signal to the entire market. This place isn't worth what we said it was. And once that signal goes out, you can't take it back. The whales saw the discounts and smelled desperation. Nobody wants to be a high roller at a property that's begging for tourists. But the budget travelers, they saw the discounts too. And you know what they thought? If they're cutting prices this hard, something must be wrong. So now this casino is trapped, too expensive for the budget crowd who just wants a cheap room and some penny slots. Too desperate for the whales who need to feel like they're somewhere exclusive. They're stuck in the middle, the dead zone, the place where hospitality brands go to suffocate. And it gets worse. Because even if they figured out their customer tomorrow, even if the perfect target demographic magically appeared, there's still one more problem they cannot solve. The building is in the wrong place. Location. In Las Vegas, convenience isn't a feature. It's oxygen. Every extra minute a tourist has to walk is a minute they're reconsidering. Every inconvenience is a competitor's opportunity. And this property, it's just far enough off the main artery to matter, just disconnected enough from the foot traffic to feel like an afterthought. Bleeding money, no clear customer, a location that fights them every single day. Any one of these problems could be survived, but all three together, that's not a turnaround opportunity, that's a death certificate. And the people who actually own the debt on this building, they figured that out a long time ago. They're not trying to save it, they're waiting to carve it up. So here's the question you should be asking. If this casino is bleeding $500,000 a day, if the customer base doesn't exist, if the location is a liability, why hasn't anyone pulled the plug? Why is this building still standing? The answer will make your stomach turn, because someone is getting rich off the collapse. Let me introduce you to the real players in this story. Not the executives, not the dealers, not even the shareholders, the debt holders. When this resort was financed, that mountain of loans didn't stay with the original banks. It got sliced up, repackaged, sold off to private equity firms and distressed asset funds. These are not people who want the casino to succeed. Read that again. They don't need this building to turn a profit. They don't need it to fill rooms. They don't need it to survive. They need it to fail, slowly, predictably, on their timeline. Here's how it works. Every month, this casino misses its debt payments. The leverage shifts. The original owners lose power. The debt holders gain it. It's a slow-motion hostile takeover disguised as a business loan. These funds bought this debt at a discount, knowing the property was distressed. They're not losing sleep over the losses. They're counting down the days until they can seize the asset for pennies on the dollar. And when they finally take control, they'll strip it for parts. The land, the gaming license, the customer database, everything valuable gets carved out and sold. The building itself, probably bulldozed. But here's what most people don't understand about casino debt. When a property this size starts to wobble, it doesn't just hurt one building. It sends shockwaves through the entire strip, and those shockwaves, they've already started. When a mega resort starts slashing prices to survive, every competitor feels it. Suddenly, the Bellagio has to answer why their rooms cost twice as much. Suddenly, Caesars is running promotions they didn't budget for. Suddenly, the whole strip is in a race to the bottom. Rate wars don't create more tourists, they don't grow the pie. They just shrink everyone's margins. And it's not just the casinos bleeding. Think about the ecosystem, the vendors who supply the kitchens, the contractors who maintain the elevators, the thousands of small businesses that survive on casino spillover. When a property this size starts dying, it takes a whole neighborhood down with it. So will anyone step in? Will Nevada throw a lifeline? Will the city intervene to protect jobs? Don't hold your breath. We've seen this movie before. When the Riviera closed, no one came to save it. When the Sahara went dark, the city shrugged. When the Mirage got its death sentence, the politicians showed up for a photo op and then vanished. Nevada doesn't bail out casinos. That's not how this town works. The political calculus is brutal. Taxpayers don't want to subsidize billionaire mistakes, and politicians don't want to be seen writing checks to gambling corporations. So the building bleeds, and the vultures wait. So what happens next? I've looked at every angle, talked to analysts, pulled apart the balance sheets, and I can tell you this, there are only 3 ways this story ends. 3 possible futures for this building. And I have to be honest with you, 2 of them are bad. The third one? The third one is worse. 3 scenarios, 3 possible futures, none of them happy endings. Let me walk you through exactly how this building dies. Scenario 1, the fire sale. The debt holders get impatient. They force a sale. Some bottom feeder private equity firm swoops in and buys the property for 40 cents on the dollar. Sounds like a rescue, right? A second chance? It's not. The new owners didn't buy this building to save it, they bought it to gut it. Day 1, they slash payroll by 30%. Housekeeping goes from daily to upon request. The restaurants close, the shows get canceled, security becomes a skeleton crew. The building stays open, technically, but it's not a resort anymore, it's a zombie. A hollow shell charging resort fees for services that no longer exist. We've seen this movie before. It ends with mildew carpets, broken elevators, 1-star reviews warning tourists to stay away. The fire sale doesn't save the casino, it just makes the death slower and uglier. Scenario 2, the rebrand. Some executive in a boardroom has a brilliant idea. Bring in a major brand, Hard Rock, Virgin, someone with marketing muscle and a loyal customer base. Slap a new name on the building, launch a splashy ad campaign. Pretend the last 5 years never happened. Here's the problem. A new sign doesn't move the building closer to the strip. A new logo doesn't erase $3 billion in debt. A rebrand doesn't magically create the customer base that never existed in the first place. You can put a fresh coat of paint on a sinking ship. It's still sinking. The rebrand is a Hail Mary, and in Vegas, Hail Marys don't hit. So that leaves scenario 3, the one nobody in this city wants to talk about out loud. The one that keeps executives awake at 3 in the morning, staring at the ceiling. The domino. Scenario 3, full collapse. The losses become unsustainable. The debt holders pull the plug. Bankruptcy is filed. The doors go dark. $3.7 billion becomes a crater in the desert. Now here's why this scenario terrifies everyone in Las Vegas. This isn't some aging relic from the 70s. This isn't a property that had a good run and faded gracefully into history. This is a modern mega resort built in the last decade with every advantage money could buy. And if it can fail this spectacularly, this publicly, this fast, then the entire mythology of Las Vegas real estate comes into question. Investor confidence doesn't just crack, it shatters. Every hedge fund, every pension fund, every international investor looking at a Vegas project will pause. They'll remember this building. They'll remember what happened when the music stopped. The domino doesn't just kill one casino. It poisons the well for a generation. So where does that leave us? Standing in the desert, watching a $3 billion monument to hubris burn through $500,000 every single day. This is not a story about one casino. This is a story about what happens when Wall Street builds playgrounds. They didn't build this resort for you. They didn't build it for the tourists. They didn't build it for the dealers or the housekeepers or the city of Las Vegas. They built it for quarterly earnings reports, for investor decks, for PowerPoint slides in boardrooms you'll never see. The tourists were never customers. They were collateral. $500,000 a day, burning. And somewhere right now, in a corner office with a view you can't afford, someone is calculating exactly how much longer they can let it burn before they walk away and leave the ashes for someone else to clean up. If you made it this far, you understand what's really happening to Las Vegas. Hit subscribe, because this story isn't over. The next video, I'm going to show you which property is next in line for the chopping block. The warning signs are already there. The debt is already stacking. And once you know what to look for, you'll see the cracks everywhere. I'll see you in the next one.